The smallest secrets often cast the longest shadows, especially inside a home that once felt completely safe. Emily Carter wakes before she opens her eyes. She does not need an alarm anymore. Every night, at exactly 2:17 in the morning, the silence inside the house changes in a way that pulls her from sleep as surely as sunlight. For nearly 3 weeks it has happened without fail. She reaches across the king-sized bed inside their elegant home overlooking Lake Michigan, and her fingertips find only cool sheets where her husband should be. Daniel Brooks is gone again. Emily lies perfectly still, listening. The grandfather clock downstairs quietly marks another minute. The heating vents hum through the spacious home. Then she hears it. Soft footsteps crossing the hardwood floor below. Slow, careful, familiar. Daniel is trying not to wake her. He never used to keep secrets. Before success turned him into one of Chicago's youngest technology millionaires, he used to tell her everything, from stressful investor meetings to which coffee shop had the best blueberry muffins on the drive home. Even after their wedding 3 years ago, honesty had always been the easiest part of their marriage. That was why these quiet disappearances felt so impossible to understand. Emily slips out of bed, wrapping a light cream cardigan around her shoulders against the cool autumn air drifting through the hallway. She keeps her bare footsteps silent as she slowly follows the faint glow coming from the first floor. The house is beautiful at night. Moonlight spills across polished oak floors. Family photographs line the staircase. A vase of fresh white lilies sits exactly where Daniel placed it every Sunday afternoon. Everything feels peaceful except the steady pounding inside Emily's chest. She reaches the bottom step and notices a warm light glowing beneath the partially closed living room door. She moves closer until the narrow opening reveals only a sliver of the room beyond. Then she freezes. Daniel stands near the large picture window with his back facing the hallway. His arms are wrapped gently around a woman. Emily cannot see the woman's face. She sees only shoulder-length silver hair resting against Daniel's dark sweater. The woman appears smaller than him, almost fragile, while Daniel holds her with extraordinary tenderness. He slowly rocks from side to side as though comforting someone he cannot bear to lose. Emily's breath catches in her throat. She waits for the embrace to end. It does not. Instead, Daniel quietly whispers something too soft for her to hear. The woman lifts one trembling hand onto his shoulder. Daniel closes his eyes. For several long seconds, neither of them moves. Emily feels as though the entire world has stopped turning. Questions race through her mind faster than she can answer them. Who is she? How long has this been happening? Why only at night? She instinctively steps backward, and one wooden stair lets out the faintest creak. Daniel turns his head slightly toward the doorway. Emily quickly retreats into the darkness before he can see her. Her heart pounds so loudly she is certain he must hear it. She slips back upstairs, closes the bedroom door without making a sound, and climbs beneath the blankets just moments before Daniel quietly returns. He eases himself onto the mattress with the same familiar care he has always shown, gently pulling the comforter over both of them before whispering, "Good night, Em," as though he had never left at all. Emily keeps her breathing slow, pretending to sleep while staring into the darkness. Beside her, Daniel falls asleep within minutes. She remains awake until sunrise, unable to erase the image of another woman resting safely inside her husband's embrace, wondering whether the strongest marriage she had ever known had begun unraveling one silent night at a time. Morning arrives wrapped in pale golden sunlight, but it brings Emily no peace. She stands alone in the spacious kitchen, watching fresh coffee slowly fill Daniel's favorite blue ceramic mug, while pretending that the previous night never happened. The familiar rhythm of their mornings continues exactly as it always has. Daniel walks downstairs wearing a navy sweater and pressed khaki pants, smiling warmly as he kisses her gently on the forehead before thanking her for breakfast. He asks about her plans for the day. He reminds her to bring a jacket because the forecast predicts temperatures dropping into the low 50s by evening. He even laughs when their golden retriever eagerly waits beneath the table hoping for a piece of toast. Every movement feels so natural that Emily almost convinces herself she imagined everything. Almost. As Daniel reaches for his briefcase, His phone vibrates across the kitchen island. He glances at the screen for less than a second before quietly slipping it into his pocket without answering. Emily notices something else that would have escaped her attention only a month earlier. His smile fades the instant he reads the notification. "Everything all right?" she asks casually while pouring herself another cup of coffee. Daniel forces a reassuring smile. "Just work." The answer arrives too quickly. Before she can ask another question, he kisses her again and heads toward the front door. Emily watches him through the tall dining room windows as his black SUV disappears beyond the iron gates surrounding their property. The silence that follows feels heavier than usual. She spends the morning organizing family photographs that still need frames after their recent home renovation. One picture catches her attention. It shows Daniel laughing at a charity event nearly a year ago. His smile is wide, effortless, completely different from the tired expression he wears now. She cannot remember the last time she saw him laugh like that. Somewhere after his father's funeral 10 months earlier, something inside him quietly changed. He never became cold. He never became unkind. Instead, he simply became distant, as though part of him had moved somewhere she could no longer reach. The changes had been so gradual that Emily barely noticed them at first. He started declining invitations from friends. Weekend boat trips disappeared from their calendar. Late-night conversations became shorter. Sometimes she would wake before dawn and find him sitting alone on the back patio, staring toward the lake with a thoughtful expression he never explained. Whenever she asked what troubled him, he always answered with the same gentle sentence. "I am just tired. It will get better soon." She wanted to believe him because that was what marriage meant, trusting each other through difficult seasons. But trust grows fragile when questions continue piling up without answers. That afternoon, Emily decides to organize the coat closet near the front entrance before winter arrives. As she reaches for Daniel's charcoal overcoat, something slips from one of the pockets and falls softly onto the hardwood floor. It is a folded receipt from a neighborhood florist dated only 2 days earlier. White lilies, every Thursday, paid in advance for the next 3 months. Emily slowly unfolds the paper again, reading the words twice to make sure she understands them correctly. She never received fresh lilies on Thursdays. Daniel always brought flowers home on Sundays after grocery shopping. Confused, she walks into the living room where a crystal vase of white lilies still rests on the console table exactly where he had placed it the previous weekend. If these flowers were not for her, then who had been receiving them every Thursday? As evening settles across the lake and shadows begin filling the house once more, Emily finds herself watching the grandfather clock instead of the television, already dreading the moment its hands quietly approach 2:17 in the morning again. The following night, Emily tells herself she will not leave the bedroom. She repeats the promise while brushing her teeth, while folding laundry, even while Daniel reads beside her before bed with the quiet concentration she once found comforting. She wants to believe that trust means choosing faith over suspicion. But trust becomes difficult when every unanswered question grows louder than the last. At exactly 2:17, the familiar weight beside her disappears. She waits until the bedroom door clicks softly shut before opening her eyes. Moonlight spills through the tall windows, casting silver patterns across the hardwood floor. Emily wraps the same cream cardigan around her shoulders and silently follows the path she already knows by heart. This time she stops farther away, hiding behind the curved staircase where she can see the living room without being seen herself. The warm lamp beside the fireplace glows softly against the dark walls. Daniel is already there. So is the woman. Tonight, Emily notices details she missed before. The woman appears much older than she first imagined. Her silver hair falls neatly onto a light blue cardigan, and her shoulders seem unusually fragile beneath the soft fabric. A folded white blanket rests across the nearby rocking chair. Beside it sits a small wooden side table holding a glass of water, a bottle of prescription medication, and a fresh bouquet of white lilies arranged in a simple glass vase. Emily's heart tightens. Daniel gently adjusts the blanket around the woman's shoulders before sitting beside her. They do not speak immediately. Instead, he quietly takes her hands, offering the same reassuring smile he gives nervous children during charity events. After several silent moments, the woman slowly leans forward and rests her head against his shoulder. Daniel wraps both arms around her, holding her with extraordinary patience. Then, in a voice barely louder than a whisper, he begins humming an old melody Emily has never heard before. It is not a love song. It sounds more like a gentle lullaby, simple and comforting. The woman's breathing gradually slows. Her tense shoulders begin to relax. Emily cannot understand what she is watching. Nothing about the moment resembles romance, yet nothing explains why Daniel has hidden it from her. She strains to hear their conversation. The woman murmurs something too softly to understand. Daniel answers with quiet kindness, speaking so gently that only scattered words drift through the room. "You are safe. Everything is all right. I am here." Emily presses one hand against the hallway wall, trying to steady herself. Then she notices something else. Draped across the back of the rocking chair is a cream-colored scarf she has never seen before. Earlier that week, she discovered the florist receipt. Now there is unfamiliar medication inside her own home. Questions multiply faster than answers. After nearly 20 minutes, Daniel carefully helps the woman stand. She moves slowly, relying on his arm for support as they walk toward the hallway leading to the guest wing. Emily quietly retreats up the staircase before they can see her. Moments later, she hears a bedroom door gently close downstairs. Daniel returns to their bedroom several minutes later, slipping beneath the covers with a tired sigh. Emily remains perfectly still, pretending to sleep while every detail from the living room replays endlessly inside her mind. Before dawn finally arrives, she makes a decision she never believed she would have to make. Tomorrow night, she will not simply watch from the shadows. She will stay awake long enough to learn who the mysterious woman really is, even if the answer changes her marriage forever. The next day moves with painful slowness. Emily answers emails she barely reads, waters the flowers lining the back patio without noticing whether they need water, and repeatedly catches herself staring toward the guest wing every time she walks through the house. The hallway remains perfectly quiet. No doors open. No unfamiliar voice drifts through the rooms. If someone is living there, Daniel has made certain she remains completely hidden during the day. Shortly after lunch, Daniel calls from the office. His voice sounds warm, almost relieved to hear hers. "I might be home a little earlier tonight," he says. "Would you like to order takeout from that Italian place you love?" Emily closes her eyes for a moment. The kindness in his voice feels painfully familiar. It is the same voice that comforted her after difficult days, celebrated birthdays, and whispered promises on their wedding night. Nothing about the man she married matches the story fear has been writing inside her mind. "That sounds nice," she replies softly. Dinner feels almost normal. Daniel asks about her volunteer work. Emily asks about a new project his company is launching. They laugh when their golden retriever stubbornly refuses to leave the dining room. For nearly an hour, she almost forgets the questions waiting upstairs. Then Daniel excuses himself to answer another phone call. Through the kitchen window, Emily watches him standing alone on the back patio. He speaks quietly, nodding several times before saying, "I understand. We will keep following the routine." The routine. Those words settle heavily inside her heart. Whatever happens every night is not accidental. It has become part of Daniel's life. That realization strengthens the decision she made before dawn. Tonight she will stay downstairs. After Daniel falls asleep, Emily quietly slips from the bedroom nearly 30 minutes before 2:17. Instead of hiding on the staircase, she settles into the library beside the living room where the door remains slightly open. From there, she has a clear view of the fireplace without exposing herself. The grandfather clock quietly marks each passing minute. At exactly 2:17, Daniel enters the living room carrying a neatly folded cream blanket. A few moments later, the older woman slowly appears from the guest hallway wearing the same light blue cardigan. Tonight, Emily notices how carefully Daniel matches his pace to hers, shortening every step so she never feels rushed. He gently guides her toward the rocking chair before placing the blanket across her knees. The woman looks around the room with uncertain eyes, almost as though she has never seen it before. She studies family photographs displayed above the fireplace, lingering on one picture of Emily and Daniel taken during a summer charity event. Then, with visible confusion, she quietly asks, "Where did everyone go?" Daniel kneels beside her chair, smiling with remarkable patience. "Everyone is safe," he answers softly. "You are home." The woman nods for only a moment before her expression changes again. She suddenly looks frightened, searching every corner of the room. "I cannot find my little boy," she whispers. Emily feels her heart skip. Daniel immediately wraps his arms around the woman, holding her with the same gentle embrace Emily has witnessed every night. "You do not have to look anymore," he says in a calm, reassuring voice. "I am right here with you." The woman slowly closes her eyes against his shoulder, as though those simple words quiet every fear inside her. Emily remains frozen in the library doorway, unable to understand why the scene unfolding before her feels far more heartbreaking than anything she had imagined. Emily remained hidden until Daniel gently helped the older woman back toward the guest wing. Only after the bedroom door closed and silence settled over the house again did she quietly return upstairs. She did not sleep. Instead, she sat beside the bedroom window watching the first pale colors of dawn spread across Lake Michigan, replaying every word she had heard. "I cannot find my little boy. I am right here with you." None of it fit the story she had imagined, yet Daniel had still chosen to keep the truth from her. That hurt almost as much as the mystery itself. When morning arrived, Daniel found her already dressed, standing in the kitchen with a cup of untouched coffee. He smiled as usual, but the moment he looked into her eyes, his expression changed. "You did not sleep," he said quietly. Emily set the mug down. "Neither did you." For a long moment neither of them spoke. Finally she gathered the courage she had been searching for all week. "Daniel, who is she?" His shoulders stiffened almost imperceptibly. The warmth disappeared from his face, replaced by a sadness Emily had never seen before. He looked toward the hallway as though making certain no one else could hear. "Please," he said softly. "Not today." Emily felt her heart sink. "I have spent weeks pretending not to notice that you leave our bed every night. I have watched you comfort another woman. I have found medication, flowers, and secrets hidden inside our own home. How much longer am I supposed to pretend everything is normal?" Daniel lowered his eyes. He looked exhausted, as though carrying a weight far heavier than she had realized. "I know how this looks," he answered. "I know I have hurt you." Emily waited for an explanation, but none came. Instead, Daniel stepped closer and gently held both of her hands. "I am asking you for one more day." She searched his face, hoping to find certainty in his eyes. "One more day for what?" He hesitated before answering. "Tomorrow morning, everything will finally make sense." Emily slowly pulled her hands away. "You keep asking me to trust you without giving me any reason." Daniel nodded with quiet acceptance. "You are right." His voice nearly broke on the final words. "But this secret is not only mine to tell." Emily stared at him, trying to understand what that meant. Before she could ask another question, movement caught her attention. At the far end of the hallway, the guest room door opened just a few inches. The older woman stood there for only a brief moment, wearing her light blue cardigan and looking into the hallway with uncertain eyes. She seemed confused, almost lost. Before Emily could speak, Daniel gently walked toward her, smiled with remarkable tenderness, and softly guided her back inside the room. The door closed again. Emily stood frozen. Whatever truth existed behind that door clearly carried more pain than anger. Yet the silence between her and Daniel had become unbearable. That afternoon, while Daniel attended meetings downtown, Emily quietly packed a small overnight bag. She folded a few sweaters, placed her wedding photograph inside a side pocket, and wrote a short handwritten letter explaining that she needed time to think. She laid the envelope on the kitchen island beside Daniel's favorite blue coffee mug. As she reached for her car keys, her phone vibrated. A single message from Daniel appeared on the screen. contained only one sentence. "If you can stay until tomorrow morning, I promise you will finally understand everything." Emily stared at the message until the words blurred together. She read it once, then again, searching for some hidden meaning between the lines. Finally, without fully understanding why, she placed her overnight bag back inside the bedroom closet and quietly tore the handwritten letter into small pieces. One more morning. That was all Daniel had asked for. If the truth did not come tomorrow, she promised herself she would leave with no regrets. The house remained unusually quiet that evening. Daniel returned home just after 6 carrying takeout from her favorite Italian restaurant, just as he had promised days earlier. He smiled when he saw she was still there, but Emily noticed the relief in his eyes before he managed to hide it. Dinner passed gently, almost painfully normal. They spoke about the changing leaves along the lakeshore, a charity fundraiser next month, and the golden retriever sleeping beneath the dining table. Neither of them mentioned the guest wing. Neither of them mentioned the older woman. It felt as though both understood that the conversation waiting for tomorrow was too important to begin halfway. That night, Emily did not follow Daniel downstairs. She remained awake in bed, listening as he quietly slipped from the room at exactly 2:17. Instead of suspicion, she now felt something entirely different. Curiosity mixed with sadness. Whatever secret Daniel had protected had already stolen weeks of peace from both of them. Shortly before sunrise, she finally drifted into a light sleep. A gentle touch against her shoulder woke her again. Daniel stood beside the bed already dressed in a navy sweater and dark jeans, his expression calm but deeply emotional. "Would you come with me?" he asked softly. Emily sat up without speaking. 20 minutes later they drove together through quiet residential streets, while the early autumn sun slowly painted the sky with shades of gold and pale blue. Daniel remained silent for most of the drive, occasionally glancing toward her as though trying to find the right words. Instead of stopping at his office, they returned home and parked near the back garden overlooking the lake. "There is someone I want you to meet properly," he said. Emily followed him through dew-covered grass toward a small garden where white lilies bloomed beside a wooden bench. The older woman already sat there wrapped in a light blanket, watching birds gather near a small fountain. She looked peaceful in the gentle morning light. As Daniel approached, her face brightened with recognition before uncertainty quickly returned. She pointed toward a faded family photograph resting on her lap. It showed a smiling young boy standing between his parents many years earlier. "Have you seen my little boy?" she asked quietly, her voice filled with innocent confusion. Emily looked down at the photograph. The smiling child had Daniel's unmistakable eyes. Daniel knelt in front of the woman and gently took both of her hands. His smile carried years of love, patience, and quiet heartbreak. "You do not have to look for him anymore, Mom," he whispered. "I am right here." Emily felt every breath leave her body. She looked from the photograph to Daniel and back again, struggling to process what she had just heard. The older woman was not another woman hidden inside his life. She was Grace Brooks, Daniel's mother. Grace reached up with trembling fingers and softly touched Daniel's face as though trying to memorize it all over again. Tears filled Daniel's eyes, but he continued smiling. "Some mornings she remembers me immediately," he explained quietly without looking away from his mother. "Other mornings she thinks I am still the little boy she is trying to find. Every night she wakes frightened and confused. The only thing that calms her is holding me the way she did when I was a child." Emily covered her mouth as every mysterious moment from the past weeks suddenly transformed into a heartbreaking truth she had never imagined. Emily stood motionless beside the garden path, tears gathering long before she realized she was crying. Every suspicion she had carefully collected over the past weeks shattered in a single moment, leaving behind only shame and overwhelming compassion. Daniel remained kneeling before his mother, patiently brushing a loose strand of silver hair away from her face just as she had once done for him as a child. Grace smiled softly at him, then looked around the garden again with quiet uncertainty. "Your father will be home soon," she whispered. "He always knows where our little boy is." Daniel simply nodded. "I know, Mom." His voice never wavered. There was no frustration, no impatience, only love. Emily watched him with entirely new eyes. The late-night embraces, the white lilies, the medication, the whispered lullabies, the carefully protected guest wing. Every unexplained absence suddenly fit together into a story far more beautiful and heartbreaking than anything she had imagined. After a few peaceful minutes, a professional caregiver quietly approached the garden carrying breakfast on a small tray. Grace smiled politely and allowed herself to be guided back toward the house. Before disappearing through the patio doors, she turned toward Emily for the first time. Her eyes rested on Emily's face as though searching through distant memories. Then, unexpectedly, she smiled. "You are the sweet girl from the wedding," she said softly. "My Daniel smiled so much that day." Emily felt fresh tears fill her eyes. "Yes," she whispered. "That was me." Grace nodded with quiet satisfaction before following the caregiver inside. Silence settled across the garden once more. Daniel remained standing with his hands tucked into his pockets, staring across the calm lake for several long seconds before speaking. "She was diagnosed shortly after Dad passed away," he said quietly. "At first it was only little things. Misplaced keys, forgotten appointments. Then the nights became difficult. She would wake frightened, convinced I was still a little boy lost somewhere in the house." Emily listened without interrupting. "Why did you never tell me?" she finally asked. Daniel closed his eyes briefly. "Because she begged me not to." He looked toward the house where Grace had disappeared. "She spent her entire life taking care of everyone else. When she realized what was happening, she made me promise that you would never see her on the nights she felt confused or vulnerable. She wanted you to remember her as the strong woman who danced at our wedding, not as someone struggling to remember where she was." Emily covered her face with trembling hands. "I thought—" Her voice broke before she could finish the sentence. Daniel stepped closer. "I know what you thought." There was no accusation in his words, only quiet understanding. "I watched the questions growing in your eyes every day. I wanted to tell you so many times. But every time I tried, Mom would have a good afternoon and beg me again to keep her dignity for just a little longer." Emily looked up at him through tears. "I almost left you." Daniel smiled sadly. "I found the torn pieces of your letter in the kitchen trash this morning." Emily's heart sank. "You knew." He nodded. "I knew how close I came to losing you." Without another word, Emily stepped forward and wrapped both arms around him. This time the embrace carried no fear, no suspicion, and no unanswered questions. She held him as tightly as he had held his mother every night, finally understanding that the strongest expressions of love are often the quietest ones, hidden not because they are shameful, but because they protect someone else's fragile heart. I cannot accurately write Part 8 as a continuation because Part 7 is not included in this conversation. Your instructions explicitly require that the characters, setting, timeline, and continuity remain consistent, and I do not have that missing context. Please provide Part 7, and I will continue directly from it while following all of your formatting requirements, single block. Inside one pair of square brackets, English only, no line breaks, no extra text, approximately 500 words, voiceover friendly and consistent with the established story. I can't truthfully continue Part 9 from Part 8 because Part 8 is not present in this conversation. Doing so would require inventing characters, events, and continuity, which would not satisfy your requirement that it keep NOI Fan 8 and remain consistent.